Hello and welcome everybody to the H3O podcast. I am your host Joel Rather alongside my cohort Jason Hirsch. We appreciate you guys tuning in today and pretty excited as we have a product that we're pretty pumped about for this season, and the founder and owner of the Bow Spider, David Merrill, on with us today. So we appreciate you stopping in. I know I've been hounding you for a while, and when you get into the hunting season, everybody kind of goes silent, and that's to be expected. So we appreciate you joining us. How are you today, David?
I'm great. I'm glad to be here. Really excited to come chat about hunting and everything else. So
heck yeah,
it's good to be here.
Well, we were kind of in the pre-show commenting on your backdrop there with the bull. Is that a bull that you took recently? What's the story with that guy?
Oh, that guy's my pinnacle pursuit, I would say. He's a pretty good bull. He's a Wyoming bull, archery bull, solo DIY, Grizzly Bear country. So
yeah,
got 11-inch bases and 59-inch beams.
Heck yeah.
He's got he grosses 350, but he's a 360 frame. So
yeah,
nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, I think
that's awesome.
I think anyone would be happy with taking that. So you can't, like I said in the pre-show, we talked about visibility. So we can see you. We'll have the video that'll coincide with you on the production itself, but we have the Bow Spider here on the table with us, and we want to kind of talk through it. So, I remember when we talked to you, we actually met at the Sunlight Resort at the TAC event last year, and kind of, just walking through, you were one of the vendors there, and we stopped by, and it didn't take long for us to realize that you really kind of stumbled onto something that, if you're a bow hunter, to me, and I was like,
something that we've been looking for a while.
I think I need that like ASAP. So talk us through that. Like, I want to kind of understand. I remember what you told us, but I want, everyone listening to understand kind of how it came about, like what was your process, and, obviously where you are today with the product, and maybe even, I don't know, is there a follow-up coming?
So I started bow hunting in 94. I was into archery before that, but my first bow hunt was in 94. And I went, on a Western style mule deer hunt, and we I got hooked from then on, and I haven't missed a season since, and I don't think I will. But it's just I can tell story after story of going hunting with uncles and dads and brothers, and eventually I moved to Alaska, just chasing the dream of hunting Dall sheep and moose and caribou and grizzly bear. Shortly after that, found out that I was going to be a father, and it was a long ways away from family, and we moved back out of Alaska, which is I think a pretty common story, but I have that adventure. I enjoyed it. But through all that culmination of years of bow hunting, I just come across this problem of, I'm tired of strapping this thing to my backpack. There's got to be a better way.
Yeah.
I was in college, working my way through college, and at my manufacturing job, kind of put some of my background of my college job with my college classes together, and said, hey, I can solve this problem for me, especially, when we moved to Wyoming. Bought horses. I'm riding in and out horseback, and
sounds like family's talking right there.
Yeah, I've got the little one here with us today too.
That's awesome.
So, but we just had a real problem with hauling the bows in and out horseback, and I had worked for an outfitter for a few years, and with every client's bow, I took and strapped that on a pack horse and tied it down, right?
Right.
So, excuse me for 2 seconds, guys.
No worries. We understand.
So, that led me to go, at least personally for me, when you've got a highly tuned bow that you've set up and used all year.
Yeah.
that you don't want to be pulling ropes across that with a pack horse.
Yeah, for sure.
And that was, I cringed every time I had to do it to a client's bow. That was, I wouldn't want that to been done to my bow, but at the same point in time, when I'm responsible for you as a client on a horse, I don't know what your skill level is. I'm not going to hand you a bow so that you can be riding horseback with a bow in your hand. It's almost, experienced riders would have trouble doing it. And we're not talking the Mongols on the steppe,
right,
with a recurve riding around. We're just not that skill level, and it's not that type of bow. I mean, you have a horse misstep and you poke him in the neck with a knock on your quiver, and you're going to have a rodeo. So, like I said, and then it got to the point where I was just tired of packing the bow, so I strap it to my backpack. And, at that point in time, I missed the bull elk bigger than the one on the wall behind me because where was my bow? It was strapped to my pack.
Right. Yeah. And that's a story I remember you telling. It was like was that like the final straw where you're like, all right, that can't happen again.
Yeah, and I mean, so I bought hooks, and I just kept going back to strapping the pack to my bow. After missing that bull elk of a lifetime, and I didn't even miss him because I didn't even get my bow off my pack. My buddy's behind me on the trail, and I just said, hey, get my bow. And he didn't get my bow in time, so I'm standing. And what we were doing is we had finished up the morning hunt. We were going to transition to a different drainage for an evening hunt. It was quite a ways away. We had to huff a little bit of trail to get there. And so I wasn't hunting at all. We were on the pack trail, and we were just covering country to climb up another ridge and drop into another big basin to hunt that for the evening, because I had elk in there previous that week, and I said, hey, let's get back over there. And what had happened, the best I can guess, is there was a bench above the pack trail and the river's below the pack trail. That bull had bedded all his cows for the day, and he got up and went down to go get a drink of water. And I caught him coming back off the river, headed uphill to go back to bed.
Yeah.
He was looking at me, I was looking at him. I might as well have had my pants down. I might as well not have it.
I feel like we've all maybe had a scenario similar to that, regardless of the size of the elk, where you just go, oh my gosh, is this really happening?
So that led to, 2.5, 3 years of R&D. And the last year that I hunted with the prototype, I mean, I knew it was going to be something that I was never going to go in the field without again.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I think that it's the product innovation side of things is such an interesting piece, because you look at stuff that's on the market, you look at things that you use, and I think that as you go through all the stuff, regardless of what style of hunt that you have, you're always looking at things that you carry, things that you wear, things that you bring along, and go, man, I wish this worked a little differently. I wish this, I could get to this quicker. I could, utilize it faster or more efficiently or whatever. And there's always going to be new innovations that come out. And so, you said 3 years of R&D. Talk about how did you get from that to, physically finding a product? I think some of the things I think a lot of people that maybe have ideas, have some difficulty with is like, how in the world do I make this thing come to life? Like, talk maybe a little bit about that, which is, going from idea to actually, how do you get it manufactured and all these things? Like, how did you kind of identify some of those things? I think that's probably as tough a task as coming up with an idea, is actually seeing it become something physical or something you can put in your hands.
And it's going to be a little bit of a long-winded answer, but yeah, I can speak to that in several facets. And the one that comes to the top of my mind is funding and financing, right?
Oh yeah.
You can have a great idea, and I went to bank after bank and person after person, and with my business plan, my college level business plan that I got college credits for, right? We're talking 42-page plan, lots of research, lots of data, lots of information, with a product that I'd hunted with for 2 seasons that I knew was going to work, and I still couldn't get the funding. So that's a huge hurdle for any entrepreneur out there. But
yeah,
to kind of speak to my own journey, and everybody's journey is going to be a little different, is I utilized the 3D printer at the makerspace, and so I got some CAD drawings with a college student. I said, hey, I got this idea, I need this drawn. this is what I want it to do. And we had 33 renditions on the 3D printer before I got something that would function. And then I got hooked up with manufacturing and tooling and injection molding and machining, and we started, testing out various materials and just going out in the field and just breaking it.
Yeah.
Literally just go out, break it, see where it failed, go back, add wall thickness, add a rib or add a slot or something, right? And one of these days I'll show you guys a couple of the first 3D printed models. They're crude. I mean, they are bad.
Right.
But we got something that would work out of that prototyping phase, and then we went to the tooling phase, and we had a pretty good, delay. A couple Augusts ago, I was ready, and we didn't see the mold. I had a quote for my steel mold in August, and it was the following October when the mold got delivered.
Oh, wow.
And we made some serious changes over that 14, 16-month period from that initial file. So, I mean, I took the quote-unquote final 3D printing model, we took that over to steel tooling, and then we had another 12 renditions, so 30 to get to the final, and then another 12. So 42 changes, whether they were major or minor, to go from concept to a product.
Yeah.
And you kind of have to wear several different hats. And the hat I love the best is the inventor, the creative destruction. Let's go out and do some destructive testing on this and see how can I make it better. That's fun. I mean, that's as fun as looking at a map and saying, I think there's a big bull here. I think there's an elk there. Go test out your theory. Go hunt that drainage. You go, yeah, there's some sign, but I'm not coming back. Or because you've got to justify why you're hunting a drainage or a basin or a draw, right? Unless you're just wandering out in the woods lost, which I've come across some big critters just wandering around. That's okay.
Yeah.
But you got to say, hey, I'm just going to go for a look-see and wander and you've got to set expectations that, yes, I have a tag in my pocket and a bow in my hand. I'm always willing to fill that tag, but it's got to be the right opportunity. So, I spoke to, you got to wear different hats, right? And the inventor, everybody says entrepreneur. That's the new buzzword at the moment.
Right.
And you have several different hats under that. You've got business owner, you've got manager, you've got, engineer, you've got all these marketing, website development, sales, just inventory management. There's all these things that I never in a million years even considered or thought about and said, yeah, I'm going to be looking at daily sales and just looking at profitability numbers and sales and ads and what are we doing next quarter. And I didn't care. I had this great idea. I knew I wanted to solve this problem for me, and in turn, hopefully everybody would enjoy that.
Yeah. Well, and I think, the things that you touched on there, which most people don't know. I've been down that process. Jason's been down that process, which is you start getting into something and then all of a sudden you realize like, oh crap, like I need to be able to do a little bit of this. I'm going to have a better understanding of business. I'm going to have a better understanding of marketing. I'm going to have a better understanding of how to manage all these things, because it doesn't just like, the overnight success thing, right? Like that's another like buzz kind of statement. People always say like, oh, like, yeah, look at you. Like you just made this thing and, a month later you're starting to make profit. Like you hear in the process of like how long it takes.
It's a 3-year overnight success.
Right. Exactly. And
18 years of bow hunting behind that to get to that 3 years.
Right.
Yeah. So to me, I think that it also goes to show the resiliency that you have to have, because I'm sure that through that process, at some point, you probably could have been like, I don't know, maybe this thing isn't going to happen, right? Like maybe I'm not going to figure it out, or like, you're.
That's probably my biggest piece of advice to anybody listening. That's like, hey, how do I do something like this? There was hundreds of times that I had to take a mountain of a roadblock and turn it into either a bypass road or a speed bump.
Right.
Right? I mean, and every one of those times I could have said, screw it, it can't be done, it's too hard.
Yeah.
So that was the one thing that I would say is but akin to the bow hunter spirit is, okay, so I screwed up that stock, that cow barked at me, and that bull went trotting away that I just spent 3 hours crawling in on, and I'm 82 yards away. I just needed to make the final 20-yard stock and wait for him to walk back to it down this trail, and it's a done deal, right? Well,
Yeah.
it's not a done deal till you notch the tag in the bow hunting world. That's just
Yeah. Yeah.
I would say the easiest slam dunks are the ones I screw up the most, and the long shots are the ones that I pull
Right.
a rabbit out of the hat. And, right? So
Yeah, without question. Well, we've got one of the bow spiders here. It's kind of deconstructed, so I don't have it attached, but you'll see that this is kind of the main housing unit, if you will, and it comes with some strapping that really creates a multitude of versatility. And if you go to your site, which is bowspider.com, you talk about how many renditions and things that you've went through. Well, this bad boy now is at the point where I know there's a video, whether it's on your social media or whatever, where you've ran this thing over with a truck, right? And you've managed to get to where this thing is pretty indestructible, and most anything that you can think of as far as, like you said, breakage or what have you, you've kind of vetted those things. And so talk a little bit about the versatility. I know that for me, there's a couple of the options with this. For me, I think a lot. Probably my first go-to is going to be putting that thing on my packs, like you said, when you get out and you're trying to get into drainages or whatever, relieving yourself of the ability to put that on your pack and be able to have access to it. But I think some of the other options and ideas of this, which this housing is what connects to your bow itself, and then the bow drops into this slot here and you're set. But talk a little bit about some of the other options as far as outside of just having it on your pack. I know you showed us a whole bunch of other things that the product will do, and options and ideas of how you can actually carry it and utilize it kind of more multifaceted than just throwing it over your back.
So that's you touched on it. That was where all the R&D work took place, was that it's a 50% glass-filled polymer. It's an aerospace product. It's basically the same thing that's on your Bosch and Lacombe, the spotting scope housings, your rifle stocks, your pistol frames, all those polymer products that you see that are out there now is, some form or another of some similar product to that. And that's where what people don't realize is they keep saying, oh, that's a piece of plastic. Well, that piece of plastic is approaching the strength of aluminum in tensile strength.
Right.
So it's liquid aluminum is the best way to describe it.
Right.
And we spent a ton of time, and we got it to function on the pack. And then I said, well, it'd be nice if it'd go on the hip. And then I said, well, it'd be nice if it would go on the pack, the hip, the wall. And then I'm like, all of a sudden I discovered, well, if it goes on the hip, it'll go around on the headrest of my truck.
Right.
So now if it goes on the headrest of my truck and the wall at home, well, I can put it on the tree out in the field. I can put it on the back of my pack. I can put it on my hip. You can put it on the back of your side-by-side. It's now, that was where all the work went into, was getting all those features in such a small, tiny package of how that thing mounts to everything. The actual functioning of the product didn't take me all that long from one of those first renditions all the way through. We've stayed kind of true to that fashion and form.
Right.
And so, like I touched on them right there, my favorite is on the hip of my backpack. Why? Because I'm glassing. If I can't see it, I can't hunt it. And as a bow hunter, as a rifle hunter, I got told this by a guy a long time ago. As a rifle hunter without a pair of binoculars, you're half a hunter.
Yeah, that's
As
good.
a bow hunter without a pair of binoculars, you're not really a hunter at all. You're just a nature walker. Okay? So and in my younger days, in my late teens, early 20s, I just ran over the next ridge, just see what's there. And when I say ran, I mean ran. I'm getting a little either wiser or fatter, one of the two.
It's called a dad bod.
I like to.
It's acceptable.
Yes, but my success rate has gone up much higher because I'll spend a day or two glassing, and then I'll start going through that area.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but when you're trying to glass with the bow, and we've all done this, what do you have two options. Your bow either strap to your backpack or you lay it on the ground. I mean, I've tried to hold my bow and put my binoculars on top of it, and that works if you're looking at something 200 yards away. Is that an animal or not? And then walk towards it. But if you're truly glassing country, picking it over and going back and forth over it several times, you need to have both your knees up, your elbows on your knees, and you need to, or even get a tripod out and put your binoculars on a tripod.
Yeah.
Because if you can't see it, you can't harvest it. And I did the same thing. I've laid my bow down hundreds of times so I could pull my binoculars out and use them. I remember my first pair of binoculars were on a piece of hay string around my neck, and I'm not joking.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And now we've got some pretty sweet bino harnesses and I've got range finders, and I got my pistol and wind checkers and spare batteries and pocket knives on my chest rig now.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah, I've gotten to the point where I look at
one of the cool places. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna comment. Say, like, I feel like I'm in the military almost, the way that I put all my stuff on there now.
Got to kit up.
I'm fully kitted. It seems like everything at my access on your chest harness now. So sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
But you're correct, and if you hop on Bow Spider's website, you see that we're selling a knife right now in a Kydex sheath. It's a Montana custom knife.
Yeah.
And the reason I co-branded those and picked those up is you can put one of those knives right on your shoulder strap of your backpack. All you got to do is reach up and pull that knife off. And I had a horse wreck. We talk about it on the podcast, Radcast Outdoors. We did an elk episode. I had a horse wreck this fall. Worst one I've ever had in a lot of years and a lot of miles horseback. And I had one horse step off the trail on a really nasty spot. And we weren't on the pack trail. We were on an elk trail going to recover elk. And he slipped his back feet off. Well, we tie the two horses together with a lead rope, but you put a little piece of piggin, we call it, but just hay twine between that. So if you ever have a wreck, that breakaway can break, because the lead rope's 1/2 inch rope, right? Or 3/4 inch rope. Well, for whatever reason, that piggin didn't break, and he pulled the horse in front of him over as well. I was just leading two loaded with elk. And I had my bear protection shotgun on there and everything else. I had my bow on my Bow Spider on my back, thankfully. But one horse rolled down the hill once, and the other horse rolled down on top of him. And because my knife was stored in my backpack, I couldn't get to a knife in time to get those horses untied timely. I mean, I had to put my backpack down and dig a knife out to start cutting ropes.
Yeah.
Thankfully, it was thick enough timber that I had taken, and we had not put the horns on the horse yet. We were waiting until we got down to the main pack trail, because the trees were too thick to put horns on a horse as well. So we had horns on a backpack and bows on backpacks. And if we'd had horns on a horse, I mean, when you roll one on top of another, it would have just stuck tines in the other horse. So
yeah.
Thankfully, both my horses are home. They're healthy.
Yeah. They're
ready to go again. But, having your equipment at the ready and testing your equipment, right? Going through, and I know we as bow hunters get to be a little bit tech junky and equipment saturated, but
yeah, man,
I'll tell you, going from wool clothes to lightweight technical synthetics that we have now, I'm warm and dry.
Right.
I never was that way before.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, it's one of those things where we continue to progressively get better. We get progressively more efficient. We're capable of, modifying things that fit either our likes and dislikes, or how even styles of hunts and those types of things. One of the things that, speaking of that, Jason and I kind of were talking about is being from Wyoming and where you hunt, and now being in Colorado, kind of switching gears on you a little bit. We're now in preparation for, the introduction of the wolf, and so talk about hunts and how things are going to change for us. Like, not to throw that in your court, and obviously we're not going to turn anything into a political tirade or anything like that. We all have our opinions about that, but at the end of the day, you know, what's your thoughts, or what's your, you know, kind of input or experiences being in, you know, where you hunt, where obviously you've got grizzly, you've got wolf, and those types of things, you know, for us Coloradans to really look forward to. I don't know if that.
Can you look forward to it?
Well, I mean, I don't want to beat a dead horse, but we did, and I can't say it better is the reason I'm going to bring it up, but we had Dan Thompson, who is the large carnivore biologist for Wyoming. He was on Radcast Outdoors podcast, and we covered 3 episodes of grizzly bears, mountain lions, and wolves.
Yeah.
So if you want to get kind of the biologist and the state standpoint and their take, and I wouldn't say the states, I would say one biologist who came on and said, this is what's happening and what I do on the ground. There's 3 more hours of content, but
right.
Back to my personal experience, you know, wolf, say, as far as, and I've said this on my podcast, is, you know, I want those large carnivores intact. I've heard wolves and seen wolves in Idaho, Wyoming, and Alaska. I've hunted and never been successful yet, but I want my grandkids to have the opportunity to go hunt wolves. So I'm not one of the shoot, shovel, and shut up crowd that thinks we should just eliminate all of them tomorrow. Right. That being said, there was a wolf in about 2012 that left Yellowstone National Park, went all the way through Utah, Colorado, all the way down to Arizona, turned around, came back. Following year, a female was down there and got shot by a coyote hunter in Nevada, I believe. It was either southern Utah or Nevada. So to say we're going to reintroduce wolves and load them up in a truck and drive them down there, that's it. Flat out bad idea. Worst idea I've heard of, because, I mean, and I'll just come out and say it. Wolves should not be on the endangered species list. They should not be threatened. They're not endangered. They're not threatened. I mean, there's between BC, Alaska, and the lower 48 and the North American continent, there is thousands, 30 or 40,000 wolves. There's no danger of them becoming extinct. Don't listen to those organizations that say that they are. There's plenty of wolves. And furthermore, you know, everybody says, oh, well, we're going to start hunting and remove the wolf. And I don't want to get too political, but I've spent an inordinate amount of time in the woods. Now, most of that's been Oregon, and then, you know, the last half of this last decade's been Wyoming, and quite a bit of it was in Alaska. I did have an opportunity on the Dull sheep hunt I went on this fall, and that's on film. I didn't quite get the wolf harvested. We held him back in, so he's about 1.5 miles away. We spotted him. We were sitting on top of a ridge, and he's going the other direction. I mean, he's south of us, and he's covering country south, and I howled him in, and he came into about 600 yards. We had to move 800 yards, and I tried to reposition to get into about 300 yards, and he spotted something, and he went up and over a rock shale on film vertical rock cliff I couldn't have gone up and over and through. So
yeah.
The reason I bring that story up is you'll never be able to control wolf numbers through hunting with firearms. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I think you look at guys, and obviously, again, not beating up the subject, but like I've talked to guys, you know, like Dirk, and, you know, even with like Garrett from Top Priority, and you know, a lot of guys that have been in and around and seen them and even hunt them. You know, like I know Corey actually Jacobson shot one in Idaho like last month, like pretty recently, and you talk to those guys and they'll tell you like they know of. I can remember, I think Dirk telling us like he knows of one guy in Idaho who's like the wolf whisperer guy. Like they're so difficult to find, they're so difficult to track, they're so difficult to get in range, just because of, you know, how smart, how elusive, and how, you know, much territory they can cover.
You just touched on the most important thing, you know, and from my trapping background and history, a fox is harder to trap than a coyote, and a coyote is harder to trap than a wolf. And the reason that is a fox lives on a 1-acre farm if he wants to, right? He goes by that fence every day, and I mean, just to get on the subject of trapping, we're not going to talk whether it's inhumane, cruel, or whatever. I'm not going to bring that up.
We'll leave that alone.
I'm a very avid pro trapper. I've done it for a lot of years, but again, a fox goes by that fence post on the corner of his 1 acre 2-3 times a day, every day, right? So, in the same adage, if I move your couch in your living room, you come home. The second you walk in the door, you know something's off, right?
Right.
Now, a coyote goes by that same fence post, maybe once a day, maybe once every couple days, right? He's got his couple 2, 3, 4 mile range area, several farms. Now, a wolf, I told you about the one that ranged over 500 miles one summer. They have kind of a 2-week pattern, at least in Alaska when I was trapping between Skilac and Tustamina Lakes. I had 50, 60 snares out, several live foothold traps out, and I never caught a wolf. And I had a snow machine, and I would snow machine around. Now, I didn't do much baiting. I was just trying to get on their trails, but they would come. 2 weeks ago, they came through a spot. I put a bunch of snares up. 2 weeks later, they come 200 yards to the north. 2 weeks later, they come 300 yards to the south. So they kind of, and that's what I'm bringing up, is when a wolf comes by, every 2 weeks, he doesn't notice if that limb's changed or that spot's changed. He's just cruising country. So as far as actually trap shy, difficult to catch, I already told you that the fox is harder than the wolf. But I'll bring the caveat in is, with the fox, you've got to cover an acre or two, and you've covered his whole territory. With the wolf, 120 square miles, something like that.
Yeah.
A needle in a
You've
haystack.
got to cover.
Yeah. And there aren't exactly highways and interstates to navigate through. You're talking about being on foot and getting back into deep country and things like that in order to even accomplish that, which, it just makes it a tall task. But it's interesting because I remember we talked to his name's completely evading me right now, the guy from Birch Barrel. And he was talking about how, in his kind of estimation, he said, after the introduction, when it happened in Wyoming, there was a little bit of, if you will, a time that it took everything else in and around the wolf to adapt to. And he feels like that, it's kind of a survival of the fittest situation where as things kind of started to level out, he said, the quality of the elk and the quality of the herd within Wyoming has improved drastically over time. And I thought that was an interesting perspective. I'm not agreeing, disagreeing, whatever. But, that's kind of the first I had heard of that, where I was like, interesting to...
Yeah, because logically it doesn't make a ton of sense, but he kind of explained it in a way where I'm like, all right, I could kind of see that happening, but... In my brain, I just couldn't rationalize the idea of putting an apex predator in with a bunch of food, basically, and telling him don't eat all of it. Like I try to tell people, like you could put a pen of 10 elk and a human in there, and you could put another pen of 10 elk and a wolf in it, and that wolf will kill all 10 with as fast as he can, and the human will take one and eat it for a year and then wait for the next one. And at least that's the way my brain rationalizes it.
So, from a, and we could talk about wolves forever, but
Right.
I'm on both sides of the fence. I want my grandkids to be able to hunt them.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm not of, hey, let's just, and yes, you can come up with circumstances of local extirpation where they've been eradicated from area X, but I'm talking as a species as a whole. And to compare Colorado to Wyoming a little bit, Colorado has twice as many elk as Wyoming.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you were going to say, hey, where do you want to go trophy bull elk hunting? I'd tell you Wyoming. Every time, hands down.
And our premium units are at the northern end of the state anyway, right on that border.
Yeah, for the most part.
So, but... I'm not sitting in the camp saying, oh, wolves only select the weak and the old and the sick. Now, there's photos of a ranch where they killed in one night 22 cow elk up here out of Matitsi in 2017 or 18, 2 or 3 winters ago.
Yeah.
They killed 22 cow elk and left them whole, fed on one, right?
Yeah.
Now, what were they going to do? They might come back a day or two later and eat another one, but they were just killing because they could kill.
Right.
Yeah. I think that's the biggest problem. I think, I look at it, especially from, as we're now in the preparation, we've got 3 years until to a little less than that now, where 2023 is supposed to be the actual, kind of onset of them bringing them into the state. Not that they're not here. Side note, right? Because we've had multiple.
They're
sightings.
not here.
But the process of the building to that point. I think it's going to be interesting to see kind of how things shake out, and it'll be just like anything else. We're going to have to kind of see how things go, and I feel sorry. If anything, for me, it's like I look at the people that are from the agriculture community, the farmers and the ranchers and some of those guys, where outside of us as hunters, of course, the ecosystem, and we talk about the the elk and the deer and everything else that obviously are going to become part of the predation with the wolves, is the livestock and what that will look like from a stress point perspective of those people that are living in those environments on a day-to-day basis, and how it's going to affect them economically. And of course, there's programs in place that are supposed to try and help counterbalance those things, and it's difficult, I know.
Well, I mean, and I have a couple good ranching friends here locally, and one of them is one of the largest deeded land owners in Sublette County, and they lose between 30 and 50 calves a year to wolf and grizzly bear and black bear predation, but it's and maybe a mountain lion, but the lion's share of that is wolf predation.
Yeah.
And
sure.
we start talking about that, you're like, well, a calf is $1,000, 30 to 50 grand down the drain, and they're talking their profit margin somewhere is in the $50,000 a year. So you split that. There's 3 brothers that run that place. You split. I mean, if you make $50,000 a year, what can you do with an extra $10,000 a year?
Yeah.
Right.
A little bit.
It's a no-brainer. Buy a Bow Spider. So, and I know those guys are. I mean, and they're all the time complaining to the state, but because they are in the predator zone, and if you want to get into the politics, we can get into it for hours. But basically, there's 2 classifications of wolf in Wyoming. If he's in Area A, he's a trophy game animal. If he's in Area B, he's a predator. And that status actually got wolves when Montana and Idaho could hunt them. Wyoming had them relisted in the state, which either they're endangered or they're not. I mean, again, when I talked about local extirpation, where, yeah, they're extinct in Florida. Wolves have been extinct since, I don't know, 1800s. I'm not privy on that, but that doesn't mean that the wolves are endangered of going extinct, period.
Right. So
for Colorado, what does it mean? And as far as back to your original question, hunting with those predators, again, wolves don't scare me as far as I'm going to be surrounded and eaten and killed by a pack of wolves. Now, there has been confirmed cases of wolves predating on humans. That can happen. The most recent one I can think of is a rural village up in Alaska. A runner was out jogging and got killed by wolves.
Yeah.
Now, was she just running and triggered their prey instinct, or did she run from them after they started chasing her? Who knows?
Yeah.
And that, I mean, if you've ever been chased by a large German Shepherd, that's half the size of a wolf. I mean, that
right.
can be an intimidating
for sure.
scenario. But again, that doesn't keep me out of the woods, keep me up at night, or even really a concern. You start taking care of the wolf problem around you, and they're very quickly going to scatter. They have a flight or fight response just like us.
Sure.
But the one that I'll go on to is the grizzly bears. That is one that you guys don't have to deal with. That's something you don't have to think about. And
I sleep a little better in the tent at night with that notion, by the way.
We had a grizzly bear on a carcass this year. We've had other grizzly bear encounters. I mean, I've had several. I like to go up and go rifle hunting after the bow season to go with family and friends just to continue my season and be in the woods.
Right.
And the scariest one was with my father-in-law, helping him pack his elk out. He left it on the ground overnight on an open sage ridge. We loaded it up, and it was quicker to just go downhill back to the road than it was any other direction. So we just started diving off the hill down through the timber, and we didn't make it 200 yards before we got charged by a grown adult male grizzly. And I mean, he looked big old roly-poly. Just, I'll never forget my jaw dropping. I'm standing there, I've got pistol and bear spray, and I got both trekking poles because I have a boned out hind quarter and front quarter in my backpack. And all I did when that grizzly bear charged in was I opened my jaw and kind of said a few choice words. And that bear, we saw a little bit of movement at about 90 yards below us and could hear crashing. And my brain automatically said, well, we busted some more elk. We just killed one up here last night, right? But I could see this dark chocolate color, so I went, it must be a moose, And I went, we're at 9,000 feet or more. I said, that's a little high this time of year for moose to be there. And if people don't know, moose in the summers are down in the lowland marsh willows, but in the winter they go to the top of the dang mountains. You go find moose sheds, they're not down in the willows and marshes and ponds. They're up on top of some mountain somewhere. Right. Which, that just seems backwards to me, that all summer I'm going to go to the lowlands and all winter I'm going to go up on top. But I digress. I saw that color in my mind, so I said, okay, we busted one moose. And the way it was, at 90 yards we had some visibility, and we kind of had a rolling hill underneath us we couldn't see till about 30 yards. Well, not but a second later, this grizzly bear pops over the ridge full view at 30 yards, kind of stands there for a second, slowly turns around, and he didn't run, but he didn't walk. He kind of sped, walked down back, and he put both feet on top of a deer kill he had. And instead of us just 180ing it and hightailing it out of there, we kind of kept a 90-degree angle on him to stay on the ridge to keep eyes on him. He stayed on his little finger ridge. We took ours and circled underneath him. But if that had been a female with cubs or a adolescent male, and again, we talked about that on my podcast, is when you're going to get in trouble is either a sow with cubs or a younger male bear that kind of doesn't know, he's unsure of himself. That full-grown adult grizzly, he looked at us and said, you come over near my deer carcass and you're done. Yeah. So, and thinking back now, about 20 yards before that happened, I looked down and there's deer hair all over the hill, and I'm like, that's a little odd. Why is there deer hair all over here?
Yeah. We found out real quick.
Yeah, but I had this grand illusion that, I'm going to get my bear spray out, and I have a can, talking gear for me, for grizzly country. I have, the zip pockets on the side of my pants. There's always a loose can in one of those pockets. And then I have a can opposite my pistol on my hip belt. Yeah. So one side's the Bow Spider, one side's the pistol, and opposite of the pistol handle is the bear spray can. Yeah. And I'm like, I'll get my bear spray out, and then once my bear spray is empty, I'll get my pistol out, and right. All I did was stand there holding my two trekking poles with my jaw open. I guess I'm gonna get eaten.
I think that's the interesting part. Everybody that they're when they have.
Well, I was saying everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? Yeah. Oh, I'm gonna get my pistol out. Oh crap, that thing's huge.
Yeah. Well, we saw a bear this year, and of course, and for whatever reason, we were unable to get a tag in a unit that I got a tag for last year. And of course, a bear pops out, and he's right on a game trail where we had bugled in a bull 2 days before. So we kind of go back to that spot again, and had a lot of activity, and bear pops out right in front of me. And I can remember thinking to myself, like, I see this thing kind of lope down right in front of me, and I'm like 30, 35 yards from it, and I go, oh crap, that's a bear. Like all of a sudden, like, I had to like process for a second. I went, oh shoot, that's a.
I just saw
bear.
A brown butt. I'm like, oh, there's an elk. Oh wait, that's not an elk.
Yeah. So it's funny how that happens, right? Like you think you're like, oh, I got this and I'll be ready and whatever, and then the situation presents itself, and all of a sudden you got to regroup a little.
Now, two thoughts come to mind. Is one, 80% of grizzly bear maulings are non-fatal. Right. And 80% of black bear maulings are fatal.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, the frequency, as far as maulings every year, it's 9 grizzly bear maulings to every black bear mauling. But if you get mauled by a black bear, you fight for your life. If you get mauled by a grizzly, you play dead. And now you got to sit there and determine what bear is chewing on me and what will I do.
Yeah, that's
So,
that's a
the
fun
best thing I would
equation.
say for Wyoming, is for Wyoming, and I know guys and they're my heroes. They go solo and they get it done every year, but I'm a chicken. I don't like. I've had enough grizzly bear encounters. I don't like them.
Yeah,
So we hunt in a teams of 2 and 3, and buddy system. And you're not going to get killed in the buddy system. Somebody might get chewed on, hurt, but
right.
it's very rare that 2 people have a grizzly bear mauling and it's fatal.
Yeah.
So
I think that's where I think we're the same. I've always said, I know guys just the same as like you said, that they get out and
Cowboy up.
they have no problem. Like Dusty's that way, a guy that hunts in our camp. He'll go out, just hike out by himself, doesn't care where he goes, when, nothing, And I'm always like, yeah, I kind of like to hunt in pairs or threes or something like that, where, in the back of my mind, I'm always thinking of those things, and it's
4
not,
eyeballs are better than 2.
right. So I'm in the same.
And
boat.
I still keep pushing the envelope and separating out. And okay, you go out this ridge, I'll go out this ridge. We'll meet here at dark. But the one thing that I'll say is, when I lived in Alaska, a couple times I went solo overnight camping, hunting in Grizz country, and never thought twice about it. Was never really concerned. And I would go camping. I mean, I just cut in August, and the film will be out here in a couple weeks. I took my dad sheep hunting, and we had a successful hunt. It was great, but I was truly never concerned about grizzlies that whole trip. We did see one, didn't quite, it was a long ways away, and we were going to harvest it. We had tags, but even when I lived up there, I was never had any concern or fear, and I just was up there and didn't have any concern or fear. There's a difference, and I can't put my finger on it exactly. One is density of grizzly bears. In Alaska, it's few and far between. Around here where I hunt, they're in town. Right?
Yeah.
So,
yeah, little different
and
for sure.
Alaskan grizzly bears, mostly their diet is consistent of either vegetation or fish. It's 20%, ungulate protein in Alaska. Here, where we're at locally, these grizzly bears are consuming 80% ungulate protein.
Right. That's a different game.
And so these bears are keying into hunting deer and elk exclusively. Well, when you're up there at the same time as them, and believe it or not, archery season is safer than rifle season for grizzly bears.
Yeah. It's. I can remember talking to.
You would think it's the other way.
Yeah, you would actually, and I can remember talking to a friend of mine who's guided in Wyoming, and I remember him saying that he knows guys up there that are like, they're of the belief, are like, I like to see a few carcasses get on the ground before I go tromping around out there, so the bears get fed a little. I always thought that was a pretty interesting,
That's a wise take, is what that is.
He's like, I'm gonna let a few elk get put on the ground before I go hiking in, and before they're get a full belly, and
let them get theirs first.
Right. So, but anyway, well,
again back to that the one that I have a healthy respect for is the grizzly bears. The mountain lions, yeah, they will sneak up behind you silently. The wolves are and you guys you're gonna figure that out. And I think it's the worst idea to, they're naturally, yes, there is a quote unquote barrier, but they're going to get down there. And the biggest problem I see in Colorado is it doesn't have Yellowstone National Park. And by that, what I mean is you guys don't have an area that has, this vast unhunted ungulate population.
Safe zone.
Right?
Yeah.
You guys get wolves. Yeah, the quote unquote the safe zone, but that safe zone is, it's a quarter of the state, right?
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the wolves that get down in where you guys are at, they're going to be getting in trouble with llamas, sheep, cattle.
Yeah. For sure.
Neighborhood dogs. There's several videos of a pack of wolves come by somebody's house, and Fido gets. They won't tolerate another canine in their space.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well,
But
one of the
moving on, switching gears, one thing that'll help you is, by having the Bow Spider, you can
That's
at
right.
least not have your hands full of bow, and you can get to a pistol. And
There you go.
I am a firm believer in. I upgraded from a 45 ACP to a 10 this year, just
Yep.
a little more knockdown power.
Yep, and I think that's becoming the caliber of choice for a lot of people. I mean, when I talk to folks that are always like, if you're in the market, or if you plan to carry, like a lot of guys feel like that's their go-to. But before we kind of wrap things up just a little bit here, we want to make sure folks understand and know how to connect with you. Obviously, the product itself, go to bowspider.com. There's a ton of stuff on there. And when you get there as well, you mentioned it, your podcast, which is the Radcast Outdoors podcast. If you want to hear more about that, obviously, like you said, you got 3 hours on there that kind of discuss even more about some of the stuff that we talked about, amongst a whole bunch of other things there. And we were commenting before we pulled it up, your site is awesome. The last question I have for you is, are you going to be back at TAC this year?
COVID's kicked everybody in the teeth a little bit.
Yeah.
And when we say we, I plan on hitting the circuit as much as I can, get out this summer. I really enjoyed engaging with everybody, showing them the product, moving product. We do have, one new thing that we worked on all fall, and not very hard, but we do have a lot of packs have gone to molly webbing on the hip belt. So and that's one area of the Bow Spider was weak in, and I can say that's solved, and we'll have those for sale definitely before TAC, but sometime this spring we'll have those up and for sale. So,
awesome.
And it's just a couple steel belt clips that go on the back of the puck, and so you can stab that thing on any molly webbing you want anywhere.
Nice. That's awesome. Well, we'll look forward to that. Hopefully we'll look forward to seeing you again in one of the TAC events this summer, maybe. And if you get to Colorado, obviously our doors are always open. I know that you're pretty active on social media, Instagram, all that. Go to Bow Spider and make sure you give David and the Bow Spider a follow as well, and check out your Radcast podcast as well. That's like a tongue twister a little bit there, but really appreciate your time. It's good to pick your brain and show everybody a little bit more with the product, and good to connect with you. If you ever get down to Colorado, obviously our doors are open. We'll welcome you to stop by, or we're working on hunts and planning things for this year. We're always kind of expanding that as well. So I really appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to seeing what comes next from you.
Yeah, no, guys, I appreciate the support, and the emails, info@bowspider.com. All the social accounts are Bow Spider. I try and be as approachable and reachable as I can be, but it's growing bigger than I ever thought it would, and it's
awesome.
It's exciting, but it's also daunting.
Yeah, well, I would say congratulations on that note, for sure. I think it's got to be pretty fulfilling to see something come from a thought to where it is today, and we'll wish you continued success. So appreciate your time, and we'll look forward to next time on the H3O podcast. And if you need any more information, we'll be sure to provide it in the show notes as well, and make sure all the connectivity to David and everything he's got going on will be in there too. So thanks so much for joining us today. We appreciate you, and we'll see you next time.
Sounds good.
Yep. See ya.